Welcome back, guys, to another week's episode of Top of the List. My name is RB. I'm here with my co-host Dom, and
What's
we
up,
will be
guys?
reviewing once again the newly released episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This episode titled "The Whole World Is Watching." We're on the second half now of this series, which will be 6 episodes long, and fans, believe it or not, for the first time, I'm going to say I really, really enjoyed this episode. Um, yeah, I really like this episode. Finally, I think we got an episode that was worthy of the MCU. So I really
Nice.
like this. Dom, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I am just in love with this show. Ryan and I have differed greatly so far this season. Looks like this episode is going to be the one where we finally agree. And of course, we'll get into the details of that later. And there's a lot to debate and discuss, a lot of developments. I don't know why I can only think of D words at the moment, but that's just what's coming
Because
out.
your name is Dom, man.
Hey,
Got to
man, that's
stick
just
with
how
the
it
D words,
works.
and they sound good.
Yeah, they do sound great, especially on the new microphone.
Yes, sir.
But let's put it back into a little perspective.
Mhm.
Last week we left it off, Ryan. I think what was your score last week?
Yeah, I was not a fan of
Okay.
last week's episode. I believe I gave it a 6 out of 10,
Okay.
slightly above where I put the series premiere, which I really did not like.
Right. Right.
So I said this one was a good, actually sub good episode last week.
Right.
Um,
And how about this week?
this week, complete 180. I'm gonna give
Uh-huh.
it an 8.5 out of 10 to start.
Nice.
Better than great, not quite into that excellent or fantastic range that we would use to characterize a 9 out of 10.
Mhm.
That said, I can be convinced this week to give this one a 9 out of 10,
Ah,
depending on what your thoughts were. Of course, that all assuming that you are going to give this episode a high score. So, Dom, what was
yeah.
your score this week?
Yeah. So this week I'm definitely gonna go 9 out of 10.
All right.
Last week I gave it a 9.5 out
Yeah.
of 10. That's really big differential in our scores
Yeah.
last week. But yeah, so this one just a half point lower than last week.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm gonna explain why I knocked it down a half point, but I do have to save that for spoilers.
Of course.
So yes, definitely for me, an amazing episode of television. For you, really great, but you
Mhm.
could be convinced for amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Glad to hear that. Is should we just go right into spoilers?
Let's jump right into
Okay.
our spoiler alert. So without further ado, wee spoiler alert, guys.
Love the spoiler alert. Sounds great on the new microphone.
Yeah.
And I think, is it okay if we go backwards this time?
I think that
We
sounds fun.
should-
Let's do it.
We should start off with the biggest surprise,
Of
which
course.
is sitting us right in the face, right behind us. And that is John Walker. He takes the super soldier serum in this one. His partner, Battlestar, right? Lamar Hopkins gets killed. So a lot of big developments. But the biggest one is Captain America kills someone with the shield, and we get this incredible shot of the shield bloodstained. What was your thoughts on John Walker's character arc this episode?
I think we finally got to learn more about John
Yes.
Walker. And this is something I've been craving since we were first introduced to him, I guess technically in the series premiere, but
Yeah.
more so in the second episode.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I've said it a couple of times in these reviews. This has felt like a Captain America film without Captain America.
Mhm.
And finally, we get this Captain America-esque character. Now, obviously, John Walker is different from our traditional Cap,
Mhm.
but I really love his story arc here. We knew between being pushed around by Bucky and Sam, and then also, really not being a super soldier amongst a group of super soldiers, that something was going to, push this guy over the edge. It took the killing of Lamar Hoskins, Battlestar, to
Yeah.
push him. Also, the temptation to take that super soldier serum, but it has created an incredible character so far as I'm concerned, which is one of in fact, probably the primary reason that I gave this episode such a high score, even before us seeing him, go
Yeah.
full on turn, killing one of these flag smashers with the
Yes.
shield. Just the whole story development of John Walker this week really set this episode with a high bar.
Yes, and Wyatt Russell, the son of Kurt Russell, who plays, of course, John Walker, he did a fantastic job this week,
Yes.
really adding a lot of depth to the character, as you said. And for me, Lamar Hoskins dying, a big surprise. I did not expect that.
Not at all.
Very good reveal, very good shot selection. Everything was great about John Walker's arc. Now, I want to go into why I think this show is becoming so excellent.
Okay.
And I think now you're starting to see it. And I could see it a little bit sooner than you could. I'm not trying to talk myself up
No,
here,
go right
but
ahead.
I'm just saying. They're playing these really interesting angles, and they're expanding upon a lot of ideas that were presented in mainly Captain America and Winter Soldier and Civil War, right? We get to see visual references to those movies that are drawing on some of the themes. Namely, I want to talk about the position in which John Walker kills this man. He holds the shield above his head and then strikes down on him over and over and over. Let me know if you remember what this is a reference to. Tony Stark versus Captain America. At the very end of their battle in Civil War, Captain America, Steve Rogers, is on top of Tony Stark. His helmet is off. Captain America holds the shield above his head. Tony Stark covers his face. It's such a small and subtle moment, but this is the reason why I think Captain America Civil War is the greatest MCU film ever made. It's such a subtle nuance that Steve Rogers lifted the shield up. Tony Stark thought for a second that Steve might actually kill him.
Yes.
But no, you can see it in Chris Evans' face. This is why Chris Evans is such a phenomenal actor. He kind of sees like, wow, you really actually don't trust me. And then he strikes it down right into the arc reactor so his suit can't work anymore.
Right, yep.
And this was a reference to that. This is a reference to what if Captain America did go too far, right? Do you see that parallel?
I do, absolutely, yes. And I think there was an excellent line also reference to that in this episode when they're talking about the super soldiers.
Yes.
And it's between Lamar Hoskins and John Walker when they're sitting discussing the super serum. And Lamar Hoskins, I think, says, the super serum just makes you more of yourself.
Yeah.
And they're talking about why can I never remember the name of the head's flag smasher?
Carly Morgenthau?
Carly Morgenthau. And then they're talking about Steve Rogers and what the super serum turned them into. And you see John Walker thinking of himself as Steve Rogers, but we see how different he is from that scene.
Absolutely. And, that's the thing about the super soldier serum. I think it's in the first Captain America movie, he mentions it to Steve Rogers when he's about to give him the serum. The serum makes good men great. Bad men worse.
Right. And this is from Howard Stark, correct? Delivers that line?
I think it's Howard Stark, or it might be this. I can't remember this. I think there's a scientist. Let me think of the name. Erskine. Erskine is the name of the scientist that created the serum. But so definitely expanding upon the themes, which kind of brings me full circle to my theme as to why I think this is such an amazing show and episode. This show isn't afraid to expand upon those themes we've seen in the MCU. Now, for sure, this is not necessarily new ground. Right. We've seen this style of property before, in the Captain America films. But I love that they're expanding upon that and creating new themes within a familiar stylistic choice. Right. So that's the best part about the episode for me. Now, is it okay if we go to my most negative here?
Yes.
Not enough Zemo. I think, he escapes halfway through the episode. I just love seeing this guy on screen, man.
I don't know that I agree there. Yes, I think
he had some good scenes though in this one.
He had some great scenes in this episode, and I think there were so many. I think, and this is going to sound terrible because I know the show is called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but to me, Sam and Bucky just drain the energy from this show. I really cannot stand them on the screen, but all the other characters are excellent. Last week it was Zemo and Sharon Carter. This week, of course, it was John Walker and Lamar Hoskins. And also, I thought we got a lot of great character development of Carly Morgenthau.
Yes.
So yes, there was a lacking of Zemo in this episode, but I don't think that took away from the episode. He had some great scenes, but we needed some more time to get other characters developed. And I think this episode did a great job with that.
I could totally see where you're coming from there. Yeah. And can we talk about one of the biggest things that Zemo does in this one? He shoots Carly Morgenthau and then destroys the remaining vials of the super soldier serum.
Or so he thinks.
Yes. Except for the one that John Walker takes.
Correct.
But I love this Zemo moment. It just shows us how ruthless he is. And it shows us that exactly like Bucky said when he breaks him out, he is a bad guy, but he does have a code. He
Correct.
does have a code. He doesn't want super soldiers to exist, and he's going to do whatever it takes to stop them.
Yes.
And I love that about him. He's a perfect anti-hero. And I love that they're developing him into that. And do you think he's going down that direction? Or do you think that there's going to be some reveal later down the line that it was Zemo all along? That he is actually the big bad? Is he the power broker? What are
I
your
really
theories on
do
that?
not think he's the power broker.
Okay.
No, I think Zemo, as you mentioned, lives by his code. His
Yes.
goal is to destroy all super soldiers. So
Yeah.
in my mind, as long as there's super soldiers around, and they
Mhm.
are primarily members of the Avengers,
Yes.
Zemo will be similar to a Loki type, a long-term villain in this universe. And
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
because Daniel Bruhl is excellent in the role.
How about when he's walking up to that group of children and he's singing Ba Ba
Baba
Black Sheep?
Yeah.
Creepy, yet, kind of charismatic at the
Yes.
same time. Very interesting. Daniel Bruhl is just amazing.
Yeah. And that's why I say, I can't fault the episode for him not being in the entire second half, because he's such a polarizing figure in the first half of this episode, whether it's that, whether it's just his quirky one-liners when they're all sitting in the hotel room or wherever they're staying in Riga. Even sort of just his nonverbal, just his actions when the Wakandan warriors come and there's the battle between the Wakandans,
which could be kind of a negative too. I love the battle itself, but he kind of escapes in the middle of it, and I kind of feel like it was unnecessary.
And I don't feel like his escape was unnecessary. I just feel like it's very out of place.
That's what I mean. Why did the battle start in the first place?
Yes, I mean, because nobody likes John Walker.
Yeah.
Poor John Walker. I'm sorry. I understand that he is our villain now, or one of our villains, but God, the poor guy can't catch a break.
And that's the most compelling part about the character is, you kind of are on his side, but yet you see his flaws.
Right, but nobody seems to understand or give this guy credit that he's an American hero. What did they say? 3 medals of honor?
3 medals of honor, but we kind of got a hint as to maybe those medals of honor really weren't what they seem to be, right?
Well, I that was an interesting sequence as well. He's speaking with Lamar Hoskins, the scene we're talking about.
Right.
And they're talking about how they knew what they were doing in Afghanistan was going to get them medals.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this shows even further a code that John Walker, or an esteem that John Walker holds himself to. He said, when we were in Afghanistan, we knew we were going to get medals for what we were doing. He said, I want to do something that is unexpected, or I forget what the wording he used.
Here's the thing with that thing is that conversation between John Walker and Lamar here is, they say, they're talking about their time over in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And he says, what we did over there wasn't necessarily right. And then John Walker says, now that I'm Captain America, this is the first time I feel I can actually do something right.
There you go. Then
after it, he says, and then Lamar's response is, could you imagine if we had the serum, how many lives we could have saved? Right. So there's something dark there that we haven't seen, and that has yet to be explained, which is interesting. And I want to see more develop on that.
I am not sure they're going. Maybe they are, but I mean, my biggest takeaway from that was just a further pushing on the horrors of war that these men have seen, to just prove that they are, battle tested. I understand what you're saying, and I was thinking about that too, but it could also just be, a matter of, yes, what they did wasn't right, but they were in the military, and in the military, you follow orders for the most part.
Absolutely.
And yes, I think what Lamar Hoskins says is what eventually, lets John Walker rationalize taking the super soldier serum. Like Dom just stated, can you imagine how many men we could have saved if we had that super soldier serum?
Yeah, and this is kind of leading us into the main central question of the show: who's the right hero for this time that we are in now? Right.
And I think that even further, I just sidebar here.
Yeah.
Further goes into the generations of heroes, or quote unquote heroes. We see, we see Sam. I think Sam is a great example, who is asked in the episode as well, why didn't you take the super soldier serum? Or, if you were offered it, would you? And he says no. And then we see these younger groups of heroes, same thing, no hesitation. Yes, of course. So it's very interesting. It's almost a look at sort of our generations right now, maybe the what do they call them, Gen X versus Gen Z, or instant gratification versus having to work for something. I thought that was a very interesting look at the this week's episode.
Yeah, and it's even something, I think we should go into Carly Morgenthau now. She's kind of one of the few characters we haven't touched on.
Yes.
It's something that she and her compatriot here, I don't know what his name is. He's just kind of a side character and member of the Flag Smashers.
Right.
But they have this conversation when she's picking up the remaining vials of the super soldier serum. He says, "You're the right kind of hero the world needs right now. One that knows that heroes have to get their hands dirty sometimes." And I think that I'm starting to see a lot of parallels between Carly and John Walker. And I love that they're drawing these kind of parallels. Of course, John Walker is an American hero. Carly's a terrorist. That's the main difference. And it comes to head in, I love the fight sequences in the show. I love the scenes with Zemo, but I think we're going to disagree on this. My favorite scene this episode, just the conversation between Sam and Carly.
I definitely agree.
Wasn't that a great scene? We get to see Sam using his experience with military veterans, right?
Well, not only that, but we also get to see Sam sharing with Carly that they're essentially on the same team.
Yes.
I mean, we're finally understanding why we got that backstory in the series premiere,
right?
With Sam's family, unable to pay for their boat. They've been gone. They were people who were not blipped or blipped. So his family was not blipped. He was blipped.
Yes.
And we see that he's an Avenger and hailed as a hero, but yet his family is struggling because, when everyone came back, they're just going through the same thing that these refugees that Carly is sticking up for, have gone through. And I think it makes it all the more powerful when we have the phone call between Carly and Sam's sister.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great, a few lines in these exchanges. Number one, when Sam and Carly are talking, he says, "We're on the same team. I just don't agree with the way that you're doing this."
Exactly, yes.
And then they have this really thought-provoking conversation about, if you're killing people, it's not changing anything. The world's just different because of it. That's all. And I think
I found that to be somewhat of a stupid line.
You think so?
You're not changing anything. The world's just different. Well, if the world's different, something has changed. So that kind of ticked me off. That line stuck with me.
I guess I could see that.
Yeah.
Now, and then we're followed by, like you said, there's a call between Carly and Sam's sister, Sarah.
Yes.
And Carly says, "So your brother is working for this new Captain America, for your new Captain America." Right. And she says, He's not mine.
Yeah, I didn't choose him.
I didn't choose him.
Yes.
He doesn't represent. She says, she says something about America. America. What did she say? Something about America.
I remember her saying, I didn't choose him.
And she says, America doesn't care about me, so why should I care about him?
There you go. Yeah.
Why should I care about their mascot?
That's exactly
I think that's a powerful line, a subtle yet powerful line, especially in the state of the world the way we are in now. In reality, African American citizens are marginalized in our society. Yes. And I think they're trying to reflect on that here a little, and I love the show for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Are we missing any big moments? Of course, everything with Wakanda and Bucky. What do you want to say about this?
I mean, I didn't like this edition last week.
Right.
And I feel the same way. Once again, I think it leads to a fight sequence that was well choreographed and neat and unnecessary.
Shoehorned in.
It's just another group of characters that,
they just wanted to get them to all fight.
That's what it feels like. And we haven't seen Wakanda since Endgame?
Yeah, Endgame.
Yeah, or even Infinity War.
I love the flashback scene.
The flashback sequence was excellent. We got a little bit more of Bucky.
Sebastian Stan's acting is so incredible in that. Just seeing the words on the screen and seeing him flashback
and the montage. Yeah,
such a good scene.
Yeah, without a doubt. First scene that I think really stood out for me with Bucky since that opening sequence we saw him in the premiere.
Right. Now, as far as the inclusion of the Dora Milaje and what's her name?
Io.
Io.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't feel like they needed to be in there.
Not at all.
It just feels like we wanted to have people smile. And sure, you and I smiled because we got to see Wakanda and we got to see a little more backstory, but it does
You
not
know
feel
what?
necessary.
And I just thinking about something, I think that was another thing that we needed to see happen to push
Mhm.
John Walker over the edge. Now, I think it could have just as well been handled if John Walker fights Sam hand to hand and gets his butt kicked like he does by the Dora
Yes.
Milaje.
Agreed.
But that is another thing that pushes him to take the super soldier serum. He says they weren't even super soldiers, and he
Which
ends
is a
up flat
great
on his
line.
butt. Yep.
And yeah, but of course Zemo escapes. He El Chapos it.
Yep.
And that's, I think, about everything.
Yeah.
In the episode.
Yeah.
I think we should end here. What do we think we're gonna go? We have 2 more episodes. We have episodes 5 and 6.
Yes.
Are Sam and Bucky gonna rip the shield from John Walker and say, "Hey, you're not worthy because you killed this guy"? I think that's where we're headed.
We could, yes, but I mean, I think obviously, and Sharon Carter, yes, not Peggy Carter,
Yes.
alluded to it in this episode. She had a small part in this episode, but she alluded to things getting ugly.
Yeah.
In
Madripoor.
Madripoor, thank you. So I'm assuming we'll go back to Madripoor. On top of that, we have the power broker delivering a message.
Who's the power broker? I really want to know. I hope they don't just not answer it and then say, "Oh, we'll find out in another MCU movie." Right? What do you think about power broker's
I think
identity?
we'll find out who the power broker is.
Okay.
What I'm more worried about is I don't know if Zemo is going to appear again, or if this is the end of Zemo in this series now that he's escaped. I think we have so much going on with Madripoor, and we're going to have Sam and Bucky back there.
Yes.
Obviously, Sharon Carter is going to be there.
Yes.
We're going to have to tie things up with the Flag Smashers, who, the power broker delivers this message to Carly saying, I need my serum back. You're playing on borrowed time. And yet we know all the serum is gone because Zemo destroyed it. And then we have a lot going on. What is going to happen with John Walker? Is John Walker going to go completely rogue?
Right.
Is he going to be is someone going to try and reel him back in? What is going to happen with John Walker?
I think his reputation is irreparably damaged after this. Now before I was kind of on your side, especially after episode 2, I was on your side, Ryan. I thought this guy does seem like he could be worthy to be Captain America. And let's tie it back to the title of our show. He was at the top of my list for who should be the new Captain America. After seeing this episode, I'm not so sure. We have a few contenders. Let me list them off for you, and you tell me who's at the top of your list. We have, first and foremost, Sam.
Yes.
Then we have Bucky. Okay. And we have Carly is also in contention, I think, even though she's the villain. She's also being played into this somehow. And of course, John Walker. Now, so there's 4. Do you think there's any more, or I think that's about it for me?
I mean, at this point, I think the obvious answer is Sam.
Yes.
Sam is the most deserving. He is who Cap wanted.
Yes.
To take the shield.
Yes.
And the fact that he gave it away in the first place is a point of contention in this entire show that, not only the characters play on, but you and I have discussed.
Yeah, and they discussed that mistake, and we'll see if he'll want to correct his mistake, or I kind of want to see Bucky be Captain America, but I don't know.
You know what I really hope? They put that shield in that museum for Steve Rogers. That is Steve Rogers' shield. Steve Rogers should be the one and only Captain America.
And they said in this episode, they said there's only ever been one Steve Rogers.
Right. And as Sam puts it in the premiere as well, times are different. We need new heroes. We can't just keep going back and saying, well, the next Captain America, there is only one Captain America.
So it's
time for new
heroes though?
Now, Sam can be that new hero as the Falcon, but he is a different hero.
Yeah.
He does not need, you don't need this costume and this shield to be a hero. You don't need this costume and this shield to be Captain America, because clearly in these characters' books, and I think in your and my book, when we look at it hard enough, there's no Captain America because Steve Rogers was Captain America. There is no other Captain America. There's no new Captain America. And I think that's why we're so frustrated with the ending of the first episode where they introduced the new Captain America.
And I think I want to end it here on something. I was reading an article, right? And I think what is the crux of this show is, and why John Walker isn't a good Captain America, is because first and foremost, he's too connected to America. Think back to Captain America. When did he follow the orders of the government? Since when was he the mascot of America? Only
Well,
back in the 1950s. After he was on ice, he was an Avenger. He was a free agent.
Yes. Okay, I understand.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was the mascot of America in the 40s.
And that's what made him such a good hero, is he wasn't really Captain America. Now, in the comics, of course, we know Captain America is the representative of America. But in the MCU, we've gone a different direction, right? He isn't the mascot of America like John Walker wants to be. That was never Steve Rogers' intention. He was the good man. And,
I don't know that I agree with that statement. He was the mascot of America.
He was in the 1940s.
Right, correct, yes.
But not after that.
Understood.
After he went under the ice and he came back, he was only an Avenger. And then think back to after Civil War, and then we see him in Infinity War.
He's been
the stars and stripes are stripped out of his uniform. He is no longer an American.
Because he did not believe in the Sokovia Accords. Yeah.
Right. And I think that is kind of the crux of what made Steve, I almost said Steve Jobs. That's what
we're in the Bay Area. We always got to be thinking about these tech superheroes.
Right. Yeah. So that's what's made Steve Rogers such an amazing Captain America, is he wasn't just loyal to America. He was loyal to the world. He was loyal to morality, to good.
Yes.
He's the one good man in the world, unabashedly good. That's what I think.
But even Steve Rogers had flaws.
True. And that's what Zemo saw in him, right? He said the fleck of green in those blue eyes. I love, that's my favorite line from Civil War.
I know it is.
But I think we've rambled on too long. Any other final points, Ryan? Final score?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with an 8.5, and I'm hoping we continue to trend positively for these final 2 episodes. Why I won't go with the 9, like we said, I think the Dora Milaje was a big takeaway from negative takeaway from this episode, but everything else was definitely great.
Yes,
if not better than great. The flashback sequence, the unraveling of John Walker, the exposition scenes with Carly Morgenthau, all almost to an excellent standard, but that's why I'm just going to keep it at 8.5 right now.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think for me, I'm not going to go 9.5 like last week.
Okay.
I'm going to go 9. And like you said, Dora Milaje really let me down, except for the fight sequence was cool.
It was a cool sequence. Yeah.
But why? I think we agree on that. But other than that, an amazing episode in my book, just based on John Walker's character progression. Sam, and seeing him talk down Carly Morgenthau, and the expansion of all these themes we've seen in Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War, just being expanded, being further developed and adapted to the world we're in now in reality and the state of the MCU world. I love that they're doing all this. I love the direction they're going. I can't wait for episodes 5 and 6. What about you, Ryan?
I'm excited. I don't think I'm nearly as excited as you.
No, not nearly.
Like I said, I've been craving since we've gone away from the Infinity Saga for something different. We got something different with WandaVision.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get something different with Loki.
Yes.
Right now, to me, this series is more similar to what we've already seen a bunch. And if we're not going to do the Infinity Saga anymore, I wanted something different. But it's as they've said in this episode a bunch of times, it's a means to an end, because as soon as this is over, we've got 2 weeks till Loki starts.
A few weeks till Loki. And I think what Ryan's looking for is that next linking.
Yeah.
Right. What is linking all this together?
Correct.
And for me, I think, from what I've been reading online, maybe this isn't related to Falcon and Winter Soldier. Looks like we're going to be the multiverse is what is linking this together,
and
right?
And once again, we've discussed this. We discussed it in WandaVision. To me, this has had nothing to progress that.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with that. This is just for people that love the Captain America films and want to see this story continue.
Right.
And I love it for that. For you, it's not as great.
Yeah, I know you've always been a bigger Captain America fan than me.
Civil War is my favorite.
And I know we've always disagreed on this. I loved the Iron Man series, though. He was, to me, Tony Stark was always the number one Avenger, not Steve Rogers. And Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, I know we disagree with. Iron Man 2, one of my favorite.
I do like Iron Man 2. And you know what? I think I want to say this now after we did the MCU thing.
Because you completely trashed Iron Man 2.
I know. I don't know why. I think Iron Man 2 is a good movie. I thought Iron Man 3 was better. I watched Iron Man 3 another time on Disney Plus on my new TV just to see what it would look like. Did not like Iron Man 3 as much as I thought I would, but yeah. So my ranking for all those who are listening now is Iron Man 1 is still the best one. Then Iron Man 2, still a good movie. Iron Man 3, eh.
Okay, so after that sidebar, I
Sorry
think we're
about that.
gonna wrap it up here. But a 9 out of 10 for you, Dom,
Uh-huh.
an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Guys, thanks for watching another episode. Be sure to give us a follow on social media. You can find our usernames down in the description. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe. If you're listening on our podcast service, please give us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more Falcon and Winter Soldier reviews and with some movie reviews coming up, including Godzilla versus Kong and the whole Monsterverse
Yeah.
review series as well. But otherwise, we'll see you guys next week. Later.